And we are live. I feel like we need Sean Murphy's sound effects for all of this, though, man. Unfortunately, Sean couldn't be here. Jeff couldn't be here, but I got cool. Cahill, come on, man, bro. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I just woke up about 30 minutes ago. I had to go, wash my face, try to get ready for it, but I'm doing good.
Hey, I feel that. I feel that, and I'm glad that you took the time to be with me here. Listen, I think one of the most polarizing figures. Let me say players because I think I know exactly who the most polarizing figure is right now on the Pistons amongst Pistons fans. But the most polarizing player, I think that might be Killian Hayes right now. And I feel like they go as his ups and downs go. And so I wanted to be able to talk about Killian Hayes this morning, talk about the defense, talk about Jalen Duren. But I feel like we would do the people a disservice, man, an injustice if we did not start or lead off with Killian Hayes, your honeymoon, and media day. You gotta give me your end of this thing.
So obviously for media day in the beginning of the Pistons preseason, I was getting married in Jamaica. We got married and I had our honeymoon in the same weekend in Jamaica. It was fun, but so Megan, my wife, she didn't want me it's like she wanted me to have the phone down, don't look at anything, like this is our time, whatever. And I completely got it. I completely understood. But I kept, under the table. I'd sneak and look at my phone, try to figure out what's going on.
I love it, yo.
I'd be DMing people like, bro, you gotta tell me what's happening, what's going on. Now I believe even you sent me a DM of Killian hitting like a pull up jumper on like a scrimmage or something, like
I
a
feel
crossover.
bad now, bro. I feel so bad. I was like, man,
Like,
let me just make sure I know Cool has been supporting this man. This is his first off season. Let me just give this man, hey, look, this is your honeymoon gift, man. This is your marriage
right.
gift.
So the entire time, I'm having my own little battle within myself, trying to, okay, you can't be looking at your phone, you can't be looking at your phone, you can't be looking at your phone, and then just any downtime, I was like, okay, let's just check what's going on. Let's just what's being said, what's happening here, like what am I missing? And then eventually, one of the preseason games we were down there for, we ended up back in our room because she was a little tired. And she's like, okay, you can watch the Pistons. Just go ahead. So we ended up turning the game. We
That's
ended
what's
up turning.
up, yo. So
We
she's a
ended up
real one, is what you telling me?
Yeah. So we ended up turning the game. I was able to watch, but yeah, that was the whole story there. I was stuck in Jamaica, and I had to make a critical choice about what I was gonna do, and I may have made the wrong choice a few times, but it is what it is.
Look, bro, on that one, I get it though. I so totally get it. It's like I was one of those guys too. When Killian Hayes was drafted, I was like, you know what, that's it. Even before the draft, even before we picked him, I was like, you know what, I would like to see what this is like. I did want to see if we could get LaMelo Ball and what the team would look like, with him. But Killian Hayes was somebody I was like, French, already working out with Will Bynum, the Bynumite. I was like, you know what, let's get this a go. He already had some connections to Detroit, connections I know through like Lakeland, Florida, and all that stuff. So I was like, yo, let's get us a go. We need a point guard, a playmaker, somebody who can come in and realistically, his job is just focusing on playmaking, not a person who has to split those duties. And sometimes it can get in the way of where the team is. So I was excited for it, man. I was ready for Killian Hayes. And when he came to here, I defended the pick. I defended how it looked early on. And I know that you were one of those guys on the front line. So I said, if we're gonna talk Killian Hayes, we gotta have somebody not just as dedicated professionally, but I'm just talking about in this man's regular life. He's like, yo, look, I gotta make sure that I gotta see what this guy is doing, how the development is going. Because we did, a lot of us were like, yo, be patient, be patient. We see what he could be. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, that's funny, man. Anything else that came from that time? Because I do remember that you were like, "Yo, somebody tell me, anybody got the clips?"
No, I just had all that was happening. I just had so many people sending me clip after clip because there was an open scrimmage. So I just had so many people sending me clip after clip, like, "Hey, look at this! Look at this! Look at this! Look what he's doing!" And I was like, "Okay, I'm missing something, man."
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting because when talking about Killian Hayes in the media game, the open practice, in the preseason, he was taking a lot of shots. He was aggressively looking for his, and this is something, shout out to Cool and to Bryce for having me on last night on the playback. That was pretty cool. What's the name of your platform again? Please share that. Definitely.
It's Pistons Watch on Playback.tv, and also obviously I'm the host of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
Definitely. I should have probably led with that,
No,
but
you go
it
straight.
was awesome to be on the first quarter last night. I know you guys had on Jack Kelly. Shout out to him as well. Somebody who's putting out some really, really good content and coverage of the Pistons and bringing some, I think, some really good hypotheticals to our conversations. But I with Killian Hayes, with the ups and downs that we see, I know that when the regular season started, Coach Casey talked about it looked like a switch was just flipped. The guy that we had here, it just kind of changed, and we know that his role changed too. As soon as the season started, it wasn't as if he was still playing the same role of just kind of go out there and prove that you've learned, prove that you can play in the mid range, prove that your shot's a little bit better, prove that you can play make a little bit better. Those things kind of changed as soon as the season started. To me, cool. It looked like they put him back in that Blake Griffin role. Just walk the ball up the court when you come in, run the play, and then you may get it swung to you in a corner. You may get it, if you cut through. And it just didn't look like it played to his game. What can you tell me about that, man, as it related to his whatever happened from preseason to the regular season, and what you think has helped him kind of regain some positive form?
Well, I think in the preseason he was extremely aggressive. He was trying things that we hadn't seen him try before. And I feel like in the preseason he looked more like how we've seen him now, like the past, what is it now, month and a half. This is how he looked in the preseason. Then the opening game of the season, I believe he shot like 1 of 9, and he was trying to be aggressive in that game, but he shot 1 of 9 in that game. And it felt like that game right there just like shattered everything. Like after that, he wasn't shooting as much, he wasn't being as aggressive. And obviously to go along with that, he just wasn't playing well either. Like this isn't like something to blame on everybody else. Like he was having one of the worst starts we have ever seen, like from an NBA player. He was shooting like 12% or something from the field, like 10% from deep. It was a very, very tough start for Killian Hayes. But again, he stuck with it. He stayed aggressive. He stayed, he believed in the work that he's put in the offseason, and he was eventually able to, turn his season around. But the beginning of the season was definitely really, really rough. I'm not sure I've seen quite the turnaround. I don't know if I've ever seen a different player like turn around like that within a season.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I know coming into the season when he had that slump, we were, especially Rod Beard of Detroit News, he hosted What We're Pistons podcast with me. We were talking about, we talked about a couple different things with Killian coming into the season and what we thought he would be. When he hit the slump, that was the number one thing that he talked about, was just his style of play and how everything changed. And I want to be able to bring Steve in. Steve, what's good, brother?
Not much here. It's 8:35 here in Tucson, Arizona. Joe is on the phone here. He's got Killian on one line, he's got Ivy on the other, and he's like, man, just hit some shots from deep, guys. That's all I'm asking you to do. I can teach you my form. I'm still trying to boot up, Mist and Windows 95 on this computer, but it's all good.
Yo, I like it, man. Yo, and if you guys don't know, Steve is going to be contributing a lot of draft content and coverage to What We're Pistons. I'm grateful for it. It's his specialty, it's his craft, it's his proficiency. I'm not going to sit up here and act like I can do what Steve does as it relates to the level of coverage that he brings. We were able to rely on him as well when we went through our Benedict Mathurin coverage also. But with Killian, I did want to ask this, man. With Killian lately, is there any concern with his last couple games, or do you believe, what I was going earlier with the stretch that he showed last season, and like towards the end of the season where we were like, yo, Killian's figured it out, the stretch that we kind of saw in the preseason, and then some of the more consistent stretches we've seen this season, is this just a blip in the road? Because over the last few games, really low free throws, no 3-pointers, because I just want to be fair to everything. I'm a supporter. I believe he's going to figure it out. And I think that's been the biggest part of his growth this year, is figuring out the ups and downs. But what do you make of the last, 3 or 4 games with Killian?
I wouldn't be too concerned about it. So like the earlier stretches in the season when he was struggling, he was just playing completely different. Now during this last 3 games, he's not shooting that well. He hasn't changed the way he's playing. He's not taking shots that he wasn't taking shots. He wasn't nothing's different. He's just not hitting them right now. And that's, like you mentioned, low free throws. he hasn't had a lot of free throws at all ever. Like even during his hot streak where he was, daggering the Mavs and daggering the Hornets, like he doesn't take free throws. He doesn't get to the free throw line. And that's a struggle for him. That's something he has to improve on desperately. He has to get more to the rim. He has to draw fouls, because if you play like this, yes, it's a step in the right direction 100%, and this is something that we're all happy to see. But when you are so reliant on the mid-range and you're so reliant on your three-point shot, if you're struggling to hit shots from outside for a night, you're going to have a really bad shooting. You're going to shoot like 2 of 9. You're going to have a bad percentage-wise night. And that's what's happened in the last few games. I don't think he's hit a 3 the last 3 games. Or the last 4 games, he's hit 1. After Charlotte, when he was 5-11 from deep, he's 1 of 5 against Sacramento, 0 of 5 against Brooklyn, 0 of 2 against Utah, 0 of 2 against Philly. He's just not hitting shots the last few games. I'm not too concerned about it at all. I think he's just he's just missing right now. He's still taking the same shots. He's still being aggressive. He's doing the exact same thing. And I've said this like the whole year. That's how he's going to get to like being consistently a really good player, by continuing to play the exact same way every night, no matter if the shot's missing or making. When you start wavering with your confidence and wavering with your aggressiveness based on how you're shooting that night, that's how you end up getting inconsistent. That's how you end up falling back into, things you don't want them to fall back into. Whether you're making, whether you're missing, whether you're hot, whether you're cold, you need to play the exact same way, and you'll get more consistently good nights than you will bad nights. And we've seen Killian start to have more consistently good nights. And it's only December. I predicted a few weeks ago that sometime in February we're going to see a stretch where Killian's like averaging 15 plus a game. Like that's coming. That stretch is coming, because he's continuing to play the same way. He's being aggressive, and it's going to pay off for a longer duration at some point. But you're going to have these nights. You're going to have the nights where he's 0 of 6, maybe one night. You might have a 2 of 10 night. Like, that's just going to come with it. He's still trying to work through all this. And like I said, when you rely so much on mid-range and three-point shooting, and you're not getting any layups, you're not getting any freebies at the line, it's going to be tough for you to have consistently good efficiency. But I'm not too concerned about it at all.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. The way that you put it is kind of the way that I was seeing things too. I was believing that, with Killian Hayes, I always thought it was more about his confidence, his aggression, his style of play. I don't care if he goes 1 of 5. Is he taking those 1 of 5 threes like one-legged, not confident, not within the flow of the offense, or is it within the flow of the offense and he just so happened to be going through a slump? That's more or less what I see. When you look at his numbers, you notice that it's not like he's increasing his mistakes. During the slump, he's still sitting around, 2 or less turnovers a game. His assists are still that 4 to 8 assists per game. That's what he's going out there and doing. There were times in the past, though, like we saw when he struggled earlier in the season, and last year when he struggled, where when Killian's confidence was gone, or if his shot wasn't there, that man's defense was whack. His assist game and playmaking suffered, and other aspects of what we've known Killian to be, playing in the passing lanes, getting deflections, those things started to decline. With this version of Killian, I don't see like a player. There was a couple games when I looked at the box score, especially sitting in the media, man, they're like, dang, we thought Killian had more points. Or dang, we thought Killian was further ahead in this or in that. And so it does speak volumes too, largely to what you're stating with Killian. He's still playing the same way. It's just sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way.
I mean, well, and also like, just to point this out. So he like I said, he's still getting the same shots. He's still being aggressive. He's just not. It's more so his outside shot. He's not hitting it the last few games. Which again, I'm not too concerned about it, because he had a long stretch of shooting really well. I really do believe in his outside shot. I don't think 3 games should really scare anybody. But like, if you take away his 3-point shot against Sacramento, then he's 4 or 5 from 2s. If you go against Brooklyn, he's 4 of 8 on 2s. So it's like he's still getting his mid-range shot. He's hitting his step back middies. He's hitting his pull-up middies. He's making those shots. He's still doing the same things, except now he's not having the 2 threes to go along with it that take his shots or his scoring from a 12-point game to a 19-point game, or a 10-point game to a 17-point game. Like that's the only difference the last few games. He'll hit some the next game. I'll go ahead and predict it now. I think he hits a few threes next game. I'm not too concerned about it.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about it either. It's just I love that we have someone else on who, effectively is looking at this, and you're trying to be objective. There are times where I'm on there and I'm like, yo, if Cool is down on Killian, it's bad. It's bad, you know. And so you are. It's not like your representation of Killian is one in which you're trying to say, oh, it's all good over here. I've seen you succinctly go and say, I will tear him to shreds here, you know, if it's warranted. And over here, you know, I see these trends. These are things that we can back it up on. It's not like you're sitting here trying to hitch your wagon to like a busted horse. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I wanted to, if we were going to talk Killian, have you on to be able to talk some of this stuff. You know, I did a podcast and a couple articles on it, and people, they're like, as soon as he hits a slump, they're like, look at him slumping. I'm like, for me, it's about how he continues to respond from these slumps. We used to see Killian go into these things in his hibernation. Now it's like a few games. Now it's just his 3-point shot. It's no longer his whole game getting shuttered. And we all knew that this season was the season to work on the 3-point shot in game. He can't do that in the practice. You know, he can't do that in the offseason. These are things that only come by playing. And he got the opportunity with Cade, you know, unfortunately being out for the season. Many people in Killian's opportunity, you know, in this situation, they don't get the opportunity to start again once they've lost that. For him, whether his long-term trajectory is starting or not, I don't believe that that denotes his value. I believe that what he's getting right now, though, it's no way you can compare that type of experience. And I'm glad to see him, you know, before we move on to Jalen Duren, you know, I'm glad to see Killian responding, you know.
Well,
so.
like there's a few people in the chat saying it, and they're completely right. His finishing around the rim is what like should be like concerned about, that he needs to greatly improve on. I'm not concerned about his mid-range shot. He's still hitting that. His 3-point shot, people need to understand that he completely reworked it in the offseason, and he's just now, like, the first 10 games, he didn't look like he was comfortable with it at all. He looks much more comfortable with it. He's taking different type of threes now. He was just taking catch and shoot. Last game against the what was the game before this one? I forget who it was, but he was taking on the move threes, off screen threes, one from the deep corner. Like he's trying different things. He's getting more comfortable with that shot. I'm not concerned about his 3-point shot at all. His finishing around the rim is something to be concerned about and something he has to improve on. Because like I said earlier, if you're just relying on mid-range shots and threes, those are tough shots. And when you're not able to hit those tough shots, you need to be able to have something that makes it easier on you. You need to be able to get a layup. You need to be able to get to the free throw line, get some easy freebies there. And that's the next step of his progression. But look, when Killian was drafted, he had a really high ceiling, and he's only played 120 games. I consider this basically his second season in the NBA. If Killian was playing like this in his second season in the NBA, if he was averaging around, was it like 12 points a game, 6 assists on 41% of the field, 35% from deep, if he did that his second season, all of us would be sitting here saying, oh my God, he's taking a massive step, and he might be turning in the right way. He's in his second season's worth of games. I still believe in his high ceiling. I think that people just need to adjust or understand that he's 21 still. He's in his second season worth of games. He's going to be able to play an entire season this year as a starter. We're only in December. Imagine what he's going to look like in January, February, March, April, and then going into next year. So, like, I'm not concerned about the 3-game stretch. There was a decent enough sample size of him playing really well that I think this is just, I mean, he's just not hitting his threes right now, so not too concerned about it.
That's dope. That's dope, man. Hey, Steve, anything you want to say on Killian Hayes before we move into this Jalen Duren talk, which is something I know from the beginning of the season, man. You've been really, really, really big on Jalen Duren.
All I'll say about Killian is it took Kyle Lowry 6 years to become a productive NBA player. I hope it doesn't take Killian that long, but they have similar toughness, like point guard vision, consistently on defense, the shooting. I mean, Kyle Lowry shot like under 30% pretty much all those 6 years. It was so bad. And then the other guy I've been telling people about is 6'5" Javon Carter. That's what Killian should be. And especially with the stretches lately, like Ivy's had more shine. You know, Bojan's got his shot up. They really haven't been looking for kicking it out. And especially with Killian's more like beyond the arc. He's not in the corners. And Ivy loves to find the guys in the corners. So that's probably why that really hasn't been a thing either.
Damn. You guys, man. You guys. So succinct. I love it. I really do. All right. With Jalen Duren, this guy has only responded since starting. I mean, he's responded since being drafted. I remember, you know, we've talked about this several times. I remember Rod talked about it too. Like, you know, people were really wondering if this guy was going to have to go down to the G League at all. You know, it was just a thought. Hey, is he going to spend some time? How raw is he? Does he? Because we couldn't really see much at Memphis. But we know that the pedigree and the people that are around him, they definitely had to have been doing something. You know, there's no way you're going to be around Coach C and you're not learning from that school to dunk everything, put everybody at the rim, at the very least. I see that. I remember Drummond, to me, I feel like he had years accolades wise, that would outshine this one year. But that year he played with Sheed, I just saw a different level of tenacity from him that I wish could have carried on. And with Jalen Duren, when he plays, that's just what I see. There's some polish that he needs, and that's every young player, and that's every NBA player. Michael Jordan continued to go and polish different parts of his game, even after he was considered the greatest. But with Jalen Duren, I wanted to ask you all, and I'll start with you, Steve. I know that you are a proponent of him starting. Has Jalen Duren exceeded your expectations with starting, though, since he's been starting? Or is it about what you expected?
Actually, it's exceeded because I thought he would struggle more in switches, and he's done better. Not that he's, fantastic and got that 100% down, but he's shown that he's not incredibly stiff. He can handle it. He understands positioning and can continue to work on that technique. And you see him try and do it a little bit more. Chemistry is the main thing that I'm the most impressed with. Like, you can tell he and Beef Stew really love playing with each other, and they're just always there celebrating each other's victories, making sure they're communicating. That's the main thing to me, because that's the biggest thing when you're the center too. If you're not communicating and you're not gelling with your guys on defense, forget it. It's never going to work. And I think he and Beef Stew already have a great foundation as the defense of the future. I don't know if Beef Stew will continue to be the long-term starter. I don't even know if Jalen Duren will continue to be the long-term starter, but I do know that they're going to be the foundation of the defense. Maybe they bring in somebody else in the offseason through the draft, through free agency, that they want to play over them at power forward or at center, and then they just kind of rotate them in. But Beef Stew and Jalen Duren definitely should be invested in the future and have shown flashes already of like the Horford, Robert Williams, and Jalen Duren's bigger than Robert Williams, more swole, more strength, maybe even more athletic. We'll see if that comes to pass, but that definitely should be the crunch time lineup, and what I believe will be the long-term investment to be like, yeah, this will be our double beef, as I keep calling it, the double beef lineup, the lineup of death, whatever you want to call it, because Stu can switch everything, and ain't nobody want to challenge Duren at the rim.
Nah, not at all. What about you, Cool? What about you, man? Duren, has he exceeded your expectations since he's started? I got the numbers, 13 rebounds a game, about just under 10 points, 9.6 points, 1.4 assists, and really looking tough in the paint, man. What's your thoughts on it?
He's 100% exceeded expectations for me. I was one of the people who thought that he would spend time in the G League beforehand because, at the time, the Pistons had, Marvin Bagley, Isaiah Stewart, Nerlens Noel, Kelly Olynyk. Like, they had a stacked front court, and he was the youngest player in the entire NBA. So, I did not expect him to be ready this quickly, and I thought he'd be playing in a much more stacked front court. But once they moved off of Kelly Olynyk, then it was like, okay, well, they play him over Nerlens Noel. Well, then Nerlens Noel started the season off, without being able to play, really. He was hurt. So Duren took advantage of that. He played really well. I can't say enough about how well he's played as an 18, 19-year-old. That it's crazy how good he's already been as an 18, 19-year-old. It makes me feel like I can only imagine what he'll be in 5 years, like at 24, 25.
That's scary.
It's crazy that he's this good already. And the biggest thing to me is the Pistons, before he became in the starting lineup, got destroyed on the glass with Stu and Bagley. They were getting obliterated. They were bottom 10 in defensive rebound percentage. They were bottom 10 in, I believe they were actually bottom 6 in both these, defensive rebound percentage and overall rebounding percentage. Since Jalen Duren came into the starting lineup, they're top 6 in offensive rebound percentage. They're top 6 in defensive rebound percentage. I believe they're top 10 in overall rebound percentage. It's completely flipped. They're dominating the glass. They're dominating the paint. They're playing strong. And when you start two bigs, that's the idea there. If you're going to start two bigs, well, then you're going to lose the rebounding battle, and you're going to lose the paint battle, and you're going to lose the physicality battle. What's the point of starting two bigs? And that's something that has completely flipped once Duren came to the starting lineup. He's been everything I could imagine he was going to be.
Yeah, he definitely exceeded my expectations. I pondered it early. I even asked DJ Baker, the coach of the Motor City Cruise, you handled the NBA players that came down from the Pistons last year very well. I remember that there were games where they came up. I remember some of those Killian Hayes games, when they were playing with only like the G League team, it seemed like, and they didn't miss a beat. They beat the Spurs in one of those games as well. And I asked them, how are you feeling about the potential of getting Jalen Duren down here? He said, we're prepared. But he did state then, he said then early, he said, I don't think they were going to have him down here, though. He stated that, and that was before any of us knew. And when he said that, Mike Curtis was there, the Detroit News, the Pistons beat writer. We looked at each other like, man. And I remember I was like, bro, these people said Sean Kemp. They said they would have took Duren with the 5th overall pick if they had to. They would have traded up. What are we missing? And Mike was like, man, this is the part where we just have to find out. And I said, all right, I'm going to continue to ponder, but I'm not going to put out there that I believe he, maybe he should be, but the trajectory looks like that's where it's tending towards the G League. Like you stated, they were stacked in the front court. I thought they were stacked in the guard position. They did not get a wing at all, in the draft. Right. And I'm hoping moving forward that that's something that they addressed. I guess I got to ask that, man. I wanted to talk about this defense, but man, we'll save that for another talk. We got to talk about the defense. We'll save that for another talk in terms of where they go next. But because Jeff Iafredi was supposed to be on, he really, 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 really wanted to have this talk. But there's some other stuff I know he wants to talk about too. So we'll definitely get to it. But obviously this Jalen Duren thing, it kind of leads directly into the defense as well because he's affected a lot. He is affected. I'm going to put up Donovan Strong's comment up here. Duren is a godsend. You said Duren and Ivy is the only reasons why he's still watching. I can get that. That game against the Utah Jazz, man, I wish they would have pulled it out, but Ivy and Duren were absolutely phenomenal. 15-14 for Duren, 30 points for Ivy on 10 of 14 shooting, man. It's just awesome to see these guys, no matter if they have these games that come back down to earth, it's awesome to see their potential. All of us who've been out there, who've ever watched it, we ain't going to talk about covering a team. I'm talking about us who have watched this team passionately. We haven't had players like this before. Not here at the same time. Not young players. Not this type of team. Not this makeup. But the defense still got to be talked about. I know that there's some improvements with Duren coming in. It's been a pain, bro. It's been a pain. And cool, I'm gonna start with you, man. With the team's defense, what is it that you're seeing as its biggest struggle? As the biggest concern. I know a lot of people. I hear them saying Casey. I hear them saying his rotations. I want to hear from you. What do you believe is the biggest issue surrounding this team's defense?
Their players. They don't have good defenders. They you have maybe 2 or 3 good defenders on the entire roster, and I don't think any of them come from the wing position. Like who's the wing position that is a good? Is it Livers? Might be an okay one,
and he's been out.
He's been out and he's been struggling so far this season. But the defenders you got Killian, Stu, and Duren provides some rim protection, but he's young as hell, and he always has some mental lapses in pick and roll coverage when he's running drop coverage. Like he still has his rookie mistakes, and that cripples a defense too. So and you shouldn't be expecting Duren to be your godsend on the defensive end, at least as an 18-year-old. Like you can't expect him to be wiping away all your defensive issues as an 18-year-old. It's not going to happen. So especially when you're starting Bojan and Sadiq at the beginning of the year, that's just a recipe for giving up 200 points a game. When you're starting Bojan and playing him so many minutes, and you don't have another wing guy next to him to guard wings, it's not going to happen. When you're giving major minutes to and we're fine with this, but if you're giving major minutes to Jaden Ivey and Sadiq Bey, both of those guys not good defenders, and you combine all of this together, you're just not going to be a good defensive team. None of those guys are good defenders. They're bad defenders. The Pistons only have legit 2 to 3 guys who are good on defense. So a lot of nights it's just simply about, can the other team miss some shots, and can the 2 guys, 3 guys
rebound?
Yeah, can those guys secure once they miss once? Can they secure the defensive rebound?
Spot on, bro. Spot on.
That's basically all you can do. They just don't have. I mean, you said you were talking about it a little bit earlier. And I know you went away from it a little bit, but by far the Pistons' biggest, the hat is fire. I can't lie to you. But the wing position, 100% is the biggest issue with the Pistons. They desperately need to attack that, because if you look at all the great teams in the league, you look at all the good teams in the league, they're stacked at the wing. That's how you win nowadays. You have multiple 6'7", 6'8", 6'9" wings who can switch across the board and do all kinds of things. The Pistons don't have any. They have none. So I know they're in the what is it called? A restore right now. But restoration. Eventually you need to get some wings, and they don't have any of them right now. And the Pistons, I mean, look Lauri Markkanen hit like 4 threes, and then after that, he still got like 3 wide open ones. And it was like
Ivy was like, we just lost him. We don't know what happened. And I'm like, because you have no defensive minded wings. It's not it's a position on the court.
It's tough, man. It's just really tough. You can point to so many plays. Like, I can't blame Casey at all for the defense like that. I don't know what he can do about this, other than maybe defensive or offensive subs. Sometimes, like there was a possession against the Lakers where he kept Ivy in the game, and Ivy got caught ball watching, and then Austin Reeves got open corner 3 at the end of the game. So like you can maybe blame Casey for even having him in the game at that point. But like outside of that, I mean.
Yeah,
these guys
are in a development year, which this has turned into. It's like we could blame him for that, but we want to see Ivy in these positions. You know, how does he learn to handle it? Because we're saying be a starter. We want all your skills and your traits, your athleticism, your speed to be a plus for us. He got to see those situations. And honestly, a guy like Ivy, if you're gonna blame Casey, and I get what you're trying to do, cool. You're trying to break bread. You're trying to meet in the middle. But if you're gonna blame Casey for that, how does Ivy ever get better? Because Ivy's the type of player who, when he has mess ups like that, and when he starts hearing the chatter and he starts seeing it on film, when he just looks up at the board in the game, you see him visibly get pissed. You see, like, and that's how he grows. It's almost like some Dragon Ball Z stuff. He's like Vegeta, bro. You know what I mean? He carries that persona. It's like, I gotta be the best. I like, dang, I messed up. How is this? That's what I get from him. And sometimes you got to put those players in these positions. Don't have him out there scoring 16 and a half, and then we're not going to put him in at the end of the game. You know what I'm saying? And then realistically, the sad part is no matter how young and inexperienced he is, he's one of our peskier perimeter defenders. You know, it sucks how that works out, you know, because then he's going to have those rookie moments where blank out. And you're right, bro. Like last night we were watching it and there was something that happened and it was like Ivy was definitely defensively, I think it was a help late. And Bryce called it out or you called it out. He should have went earlier. Like don't hesitate on Embiid. Get down there and then show. Why? Because your team can get a foul shot or Embiid is going to get a better field goal percent, you know, a look at a better shot, field goal percentage wise, than a 3. And I believe that Ivy can show and get back. But these are things that these guys learn in film session. If he's not on the court, what is he going to do? We're going to keep showing him Kojo doing it? You know what I mean? And so I get you. I just had to make sure I know what you're trying to do. We got to present, you know, if there's some aspects of what might be going wrong. If this was a game, like Casey said, where this team was contending, he said a lot of these leashes would be shorter. Like the rope that's out there would be a lot shorter. He said some players wouldn't even be playing. You know, so I that was a curious one to me when he said it. I got to go back and look at who was actually like playing. But he said some of these people would not be playing like this. Like maybe minutes at end of games, maybe some opportunities to learn. You know, so Steve, man, do you have any thoughts on it?
I have many thoughts. To be specific, Ku is right. The wing defense, Bojan is at the 3 now. Recipe for disaster. There's a reason why Utah kept him as a power forward for so long, and the defense worked because he's more of a positional guy. You don't want him one-on-one with the small forwards that run around in the NBA. He's not athletic enough to hang with them. And then you have these mismatches, like the front court for Utah in that game where Markkanen hit 38 was Markkanen at the 3, Vanderbilt at the 4, and Kessler at the 5. Markkanen's 7 foot, like a legit 7 foot. He's given up 3 inches. Bojan's given up 3 inches to him. And then they ran a lot of switches with Jaden Ivey to where Jaden Ivey ended up being on Markkanen. So he's given up even more inches there to where it doesn't even matter if he's contesting there. So that wing position, that definitely is the thing. Guard penetration, I think, is the number one thing. And Ivey has been picked on the most, in my opinion. As much as he does on offense, he does just as badly on defense, in my opinion. And part of it's being a rookie. I understand, but Keith Black, shout out Keith Black, our Piston historian over at Bad Boys podcast. He talked about it the other day. He tweeted out in that Utah game, like, and I can always tell that when Ivey's is basically like, I can tell Ivey's playing bad on defense when he's being ultra aggressive on offense because he's trying to make up for it. Yep. And I agree with that sentiment. This is why I was always down on him, is as smart as he is on offense, where you're like, you can't critique his shot selection, right? Every shot he takes, you're like, that's the shot you should be taking. But the way that plays on defense is just like, what are you seeing out there? For being a coach's son, this is the thing that is most concerning to me. He looks clueless on defense many times, and it starts with small things like technique. Go back and watch that Utah game. There are so many times where he's lining up on defense, and instead of getting square, he will twist his body one way, and immediately he's opening up the opposite side to just drive. And the Utah guys did that. Pick and roll defense too. He cannot get over a screen to save his life right now. Hopefully that can get better. I mean, when Azubuike was in there, like that's the part that really people should be cooking him on. And people should be cooking him on when Azubuike and Mike Conley were operating the pick and roll. They obliterated him. It was bad. It's so bad. And that is when he got hot because, again, he's getting aggressive. And the Vegeta analogy, like Vegeta's my guy, so I wouldn't put Ivy there. But I think it's the same way of getting angry, like of angry at yourself. So you got to make a play and make up for it. He's been the one that teams have consistently picked on because of this IQ stuff and the technique work. Those things can get better. I mean, these are teachable things, but I will keep saying it until it changes. He looks like a different athlete on defense than he does on offense. And that's just something to me that is concerning always. He gets put on people's hips too often. That has to change. It's like just the basic techniques and the simple things.
Yeah, and that's the part. It's like he's pesky. That's why I used the word pesky earlier. But there's some polish defensively that has to be added to his game. With all of the intangibles that he has, it really comes down to a technique thing. Like you said, turning the wrong way, looking back and then hesitating to help Embiid, but not just going immediately. You know, I know that those are more instinctual, you know.
Yeah, the help stuff too, though, it's hard because, like, he's a rookie. All rookies do stupid things like this too, right? But some of them never turn it around and some of them do. That's just so hard to, like, really critique somebody on right now, right?
I think he'll get it because the good thing about being a coach's son is being able to take potentially the criticism that comes as being a player. You know, with trying to get better, you're constantly hearing the things that you have to do to work on, and it becomes a part of like your habit. It becomes a part of your life. You're like, all right, I got to go in and really, really work on this. And what I'm hoping is that, you know, in the coming months, like who mentioned with Killian and with even Jalen Duren, as you mentioned, with the coming months, that we see more and better consistency. You know, I do believe that we will see that out of Ivy. I believe the type of player he is, the skill set he has, it's a technique thing. You know, it's are you willing to be taught? Are you willing to learn? Because you have all the other things that we can't teach you. We can't teach you the speed and athleticism you have, that fearlessness, that fight you have. But are you willing to be taught this technique, where to be on the court? And are you willing, if it's a pride thing, if it's I'm the fifth pick, or if it's this, I'm not saying it is. Are you willing, though, overall, to come to the table and just be taught? Because that's the only way that this works as a young player in the season where everything hasn't gone according to the way it was supposed to. That's the only way it works now. Everyone has to be able to look at it from the coach all the way down to the player, and ultimately Troy Weaver, who we don't judge him off this year. We judge him off of what he does in the offseason to counteract this year. And I got to wrap up now. But sheesh, man, I was loving this conversation. Cool. I definitely want to get you back on, bro, so we can talk about what the team needs to do moving forward. You know, the types of players they need to bring on to try and augment, you know, from the wing position. I believe that there are three things this team needs: a wing, a straight up gunner, no matter if they can play defense or not. That's why you picked some of these other players. And I believe that they need some type of bruiser, whether that person is starting or not. Just some type of guy. Like I'm seeing guys like Jeff Green go out there and they're just having certain effects. Not that this guy's having longevity, but you know what I mean? You look at other guys in the league who've had those roles, whether they're starting or not, and they're just going out there like your Bobby Portises or your PJ Tuckers and such. They're just going out there to bring a certain level of play that we've always had synonymous with our good Detroit Pistons team. So, you know, that's me. I'm hoping, you know, I will ask y'all this before we go. Cool, and then Steve, what positions do you believe they need to target? Not necessarily the players. We can get into that later, but what positions, you know, 2 or 3 positions do you think they need?
Small forward. Simple as that for me.
What about you, Steve?
Athletic wing with the very minimum potential of 3 and D. That has to be the starting point.
Yep. And by 3 and D, when I say 3 and D, I used to use that as somebody who can really, really, really shoot the three. But at this stage, I'll just get somebody whose offense, no matter what they do, they don't have to rely on having the ball in their hand. That they're just someone who can kind of fit in, even if that's cutting or being a slasher or setting a pick or anything. Just be somebody who can fit in on the offense, but your main staple is defense. You're going out there and getting it. Whether we've seen guards like that who fit that role, as well as other bigs who will fit that role. I really want them to be able to go out there and get somebody like that, man. I think
Brandon,
that would be dope.
Let me ask you a quick question, 1 to 10, since you had to get out here. Just give me a 1 to 10 answer.
Yes, sir.
How concerned are you about Sadiq Bey's future with the Pistons?
Crap. Right now, I'll say 7.
Okay.
I'll say 7. What's your concern level?
9.
Okay, so we're kind of probably in the same boat.
Yeah. I know you said you had to go, but the problem is, like we're saying, we need a defensive wing. We need a guy who can switch, who's athletic, blah blah, and he doesn't do any of that.
Cool.
So.
All right, I got to, man. The other show, sheesh, man. The Morning Woodward is coming. Not the Morning Woodward, but the sheesh. What is it called? I think it's the one with Maz and those guys. Is coming on now. One of them is coming on at 11. Definitely go check out, Woodward Sports Network. Dang, cool, man. Now you got me thinking. We're gonna have to do this again. Definitely gonna have to do this again. We're gonna do this one with Jeff as well, because that's it right there. That's the crux of it right there. I even wrote this morning about our defensive wings and such. D-Mac and Neil. Yes, sir. So yeah, definitely, man. Let's hey, thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you to everybody who was interacting. Thank you to Steve and Cool for their time. Jeff, get home safe, Brody. Sean, I miss you, man. We definitely gonna get this table talk in a little bit later. And Cool, you're welcome if you want to join that as well. And we could probably get that talk in, because I want to talk about this, the Sadiq Bey, the wing, the defense, and what this team needs to do moving forward. Because Troy Weaver, he got his hands full. He does. So, all right, you guys. Hey, look, for Woodward Pistons, for Woodward Sports, we'll definitely check in with you guys next time. But I want to let Cool and Steve tell you guys where you can find them.
You can find me over at Locked On Pistons. I'm the host of the Locked On Pistons podcast for the Locked On Network. And during the Piston games, do you ever just want to chill with some people? Me and Bryce Simon, host of the Pistons Pulse podcast, we host watch parties over at playback.tv/Pistons Watch. It's a fun time, so join us over there if you want during the games. But yeah, I got a daily podcast over the Locked On Pistons.
Dope. And he does great work. I told him before the show, and I like to make sure that people get their roses. I respect his work, respect what he's doing, and I respect how he's holding it down. It's no joke to hold down, not just a platform, but coverage, man. So I respect you. Cool. Thank you for taking the time. And Steve, let the people know where they can find you, man, and what you're up to.
You can find my personal Twitter, Bordergate Worldwide, both on Instagram and Twitter, actually. And then the podcast, I host draft podcasts, Resball episodes just about every week at Resball Pod on Instagram and on Twitter. You can follow me there. We just dropped 2 episodes recently. The one that just dropped yesterday was with Piston Mike, thinking about the guards that aren't named Scoot Henderson and like, do they deserve to be in top 5? Do they deserve it to even be in top 10? And the episode before that was with our guy, Sean Murphy, just saying, how do you cope as a team, fan of a team who's consistently in the lottery? Hope for Wemby, baby.
Let's rock. All right, you guys, till next time. This was fun. I'm definitely going to be doing this more often. The 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock hour, we're going to try and go live and just talk Pistons, have different people on here. Hopefully I can still cool away a little bit more, man, just to have these conversations. You brought up a great point there. But all right, you guys. Peace.